In the world of healthcare, bedside nurses are the frontline caregivers, offering both medical expertise and compassionate care to patients in need. Their job is often demanding and stressful, especially when emotions run high and family members of patients express their frustrations. While it's understandable that loved ones want the best for those they care about, it's important to remember that nurses are doing everything they can to provide quality care. Respect and support for these dedicated professionals make all the difference in ensuring the best outcomes for patients and a healthier work environment for nurses. Thank you, and please enjoy the story. As a nurse, I sometimes wonder why so many of us end up as psychiatric patients. Maybe it's because of all the tragedies we've experienced throughout our careers. Sometimes we don't leave our work at work, we bring it home with us. I've tried not to do that. I want to leave the bad things at work and not take them home to my daughter and my 36 years old husband. I'm actually good at keeping things at work and not bringing them home with me. However, there was one case that hit me hard. I remember a 22-year-old patient who was in the hospital. This young man's skin was yellow as gold due to liver cirrhosis. He had been drinking vodka every day since his friend committed suicide, and as a result, he developed cirrhosis. He was such a nice young man. I remember the day I was his nurse. He was just lying in bed, watching a movie on his laptop, and we had a good conversation. After that day, I was off for 3 days. When I returned to work, I found out that he had died. Patients with advanced liver cirrhosis are often very unstable, and their condition can worsen quickly. I remember crying on my way home. This is why nurses need a strong support system. I was lucky to have my husband and my 4-year-old daughter, Emily, who are my backbone. I don't know how others handle this kind of work without strong support at home. I have co-workers who make a lot of money, but don't want to go home to their partners after work. They'd rather go out and drink. As for me, my husband and my daughter are the only 2 people I want to see after a rough day at work. Nurses are caring individuals, which is why many of us end up with unloving partners who are willing to mistreat us and take advantage of our caring nature. Many times, when you hear stories from nurses, they are usually sad or disturbing. But the truth is, we've seen more happy endings than sadness. Most of the people who come to the hospital actually get better and go home. Of course, there are cases where someone dies, but even then, it can be a peaceful ending. For example, I once had a patient, I'll call him Mr. Martinez. Mr. Martinez was a 92-year-old man who had been married for 64 years. Before he came to the hospital, his wife had died of cancer 3 months earlier. When I took care of him, it was his first time staying in a hospital. He was a very healthy man who hardly took any medication. Those of you who work as nurses know that people who live to be 90 or 100 years old are often so healthy that the only medications they take are just vitamins and fish oils. They're so healthy, that's why they live so long. Mr. Martinez had taken care of his wife until she died. After she passed away, he became lonely and started feeling unwell, eventually catching pneumonia. I remember hanging a bag of medicine to keep Mr. Martinez alive. The medicine was called dopamine. Sitting at his bedside were his 4 adult children. One was a teacher, one a lawyer, one a police officer, and the other a pharmacist, all very successful people. I remember Mr. Martinez was breathing hard due to the pneumonia and a weak heart. His children asked him, "Dad, do you want to go be with Mother?" Mr. Martinez, unable to speak due to his labored breathing, simply nodded. The children said they were ready to see their father go. I gave Mr. Martinez a shot of Ativan to help him relax. Then I turned off the dopamine. I knew that without this medication, he would pass quickly, and he did. All 4 of his children started sobbing. They told me they were all adopted by Mr. Martinez and his wife, who couldn't have children of their own. The Martinez couple had adopted 4 orphans, and all 4 of those orphans grew up to be very successful individuals. This story of Mr. Martinez and his children brought warmth to my heart. Stories like this are what make our job so rewarding at times. I also remember an elderly man in his 70s who had lung cancer because he was a chronic smoker. The cancer had already spread to his brain and liver. He was very sick, and when we noticed that his heart was about to stop, we called the family into the room. In our hearts, we begged the family to choose mercy over further medical treatments, but they still wanted us to do everything, including chest compressions. In our hearts, we really hoped the family would choose mercy and allow us to give him something to help him relax so he could pass away peacefully. When his heart finally stopped, we had to do chest compressions. We broke his chest bone. Blood was coming out of his mouth, his ears, his eyes, and his bottom. The man died a painful death. As a nurse, you never forget cases like this one. I also worked with a patient who was only 24 years old. Her name was Anna. When I looked at her picture on the wall, she looked beautiful before the accident. Sometimes all it takes is one mistake, and your life can change in an instant. One night, Anna went to her friend's birthday party. She drove home drunk and ran into another car, killing the other person. Anna was paralyzed from the neck down and is now in a vegetative state. She has a tube in her neck to help her breathe and another in her stomach to feed her. Her bottom is covered in wounds that never heal because she lies in her own urine and feces for long periods. Every time she defecates, it contaminates her wounds, causing them to become infected. I remember telling my husband about Anna. I told him that if I ever ended up like a vegetable, he should not let the doctors treat me and keep me in that state. Some fates are worse than death itself. I remember one day I took care of a 17-year-old boy named Michael. His parents found him face down in the bathroom after a drug overdose. They didn't know how long he had been that way. He was in a coma and wouldn't wake up. The doctors did some imaging and an EEG and found no electrical activity in his brain. He was brain dead. His parents, who were wealthy but too busy making money to pay attention to him, were heartbroken. They were also kind people, and they decided to make Michael an organ donor to help save others. He alone could help save 8 people in need. When caring for Michael, my job was to keep him alive and well oxygenated until the day they cut him open to harvest his organs. His brain was dead, so he was essentially a dead body with a heartbeat. I remember crying while caring for this young person. One day, we had another patient, a 36-year-old man who had been in a car crash and was also brain dead. He too was an organ donor. My unit didn't let me take care of him because they thought it might be too much for me to handle. I hate seeing things like that. I hate taking care of a dead body, just so it can later be cut open for organs to be given to someone else. After working in the nursing field for a while, I'm beginning to understand why so many nurses end up as psychiatric patients. As nurses, we see so many things that are beyond words. This is why it's so important to have a strong support system at home. If you ever lose your support system, you yourself can become a psychiatric patient. That night when I got home, I didn't know how to express my feelings to my husband. I just remained quiet and hoped he wouldn't ask me about my day. Otherwise, I might break down. Luckily, he didn't ask. My husband just standing at a dark corner and looking at me all night long, maybe wishing that he can help me, but he can't. That night, daughter Emily's room is quiet too. I didn't want to go and wake her up because going into her room might make me feel worse. However, later when I was tired, I went to lie down next to my daughter in her bed and fell asleep while looking at her. She's so precious and innocent. I wish she could stay small this way forever, because the world out there can be so harsh. One day, my boss told me I needed to take a break and go on vacation. I needed a break from caring for others so I could take care of myself. I agreed with my boss and decided to take a long vacation. Sometimes it's hard to stop thinking about the bad things that happen to people, and because of that, it's hard to sleep at night. Eventually, I found myself taking shots of alcohol and sleeping pills to help me get through the night. One thing I enjoy doing to help me sleep is reading to my 4-year-old daughter, Emily. I like to read to her because it takes my mind off things. One night, while reading to my daughter, my roommate Sasha yelled at me. She said, "Please turn off the light and stop pretending your dead daughter is still alive." I said, "Excuse me, what did you say?" Sasha said, "I said turn off the light and go to sleep. Stop pretending like your dead husband and daughter are still alive." I said, "My husband and daughter aren't dead. They're right here." Sasha said, "Yeah, they're dead. They died in a car crash. Your husband was an organ donor. Did he give his balls to another man?" I got mad, so I went over to Sasha and hit her on the head with the book I was reading to my daughter. We got into a fight. The nursing staffs and securities came and separated us. They put me in my own room. After I calmed down, my nurse came and gave me a book. My nurse told me that Emily needed some sleep and for me to read her a story. I got up, sat on the side of the bed, and started reading a story to my daughter. Sometimes I wonder why so many nurses become psychiatric patients. I wonder why they chose such a field to work in. That's all for this video. Thank you for making all the way through and supporting my stories. Have a wonderful day or night.